All right. Okay. Welcome everyone to the MIUG next MIUG Tech Talk. In this session, we have Pascal from the Heiden, and he's going to tell us about the Azure Developer CLI and the importance of this tooling for integration development. The Azure Developer CLI is an open source tool that accelerates the time it takes for you to get an application from a local development environment to Azure. And it became available at Build 2023. And Pascal is going to show us some of the highlights and features and in this talk. And of course, Thomas and I will ask him about some features and challenges that he came across while using it. So Pascal?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Milan.
Yours.
Thank you. Let me share my screen. So I will be talking about the, can you see my screen, by the way?
Yeah, excellent.
Excellent. Yeah. So I will be talking about the Azure Developer CLI. This is, I would say, relatively new. This is was introduced last year. I think it was built last year, where they created a separate CLI, not to confuse it with the AC CLI that we already have. So we have a CLI for Azure specifically, right, to where you can provision some of the services we have within Azure. But we introduced another CLI which is completely different and can be run next to the CLI you already have, which is just a separate tool of deploying your applications to or integrations to Azure more efficiently, but also in a more uniform way. So let me just run through some of the concepts we have within the developer CLI. So let me first start with the discover mode. So we already have a lot of templates available. I think it's around about 20 templates that you can already use from the start on. You can just ask via AC template list to retrieve a list of all the templates we already have in there. I will show you in a sec in the VS Code terminal which templates we already have. But we extended that to more than only the templates that we offer. We made it an open source tool where you can create your own templates and share that with the world, basically. But it's also interesting from I would say, a corporate perspective, because you can create your own templates specifically for your organizations as well. And you can deploy them then in the same manner as you would do via the public way. So, and what does that contribute? Well, for example, if you are an integration developer and you want to share some of the concepts you have built, right? So, for example, a microservice API or a specific pattern using API management with service bus, with logic apps, etc. And you want to make that a best practice for the whole organization to use, then you can use an ACD template or create an ACD template from it and share that with the organization. So it makes it a little bit more of a unified or universal approach on how you would deploy, but also build some of the projects that you have in your cooperation.
And Pascal, how would you share it when you create one? How would you share it with the organization? What's the best way to do that?
You can share it via GitHub. So it's a GitHub repo which you use. You can also use Azure DevOps, of course, where you have the repository feature as well. But normally most customers use GitHub in this way. And you can set up GitHub as a private repository set up for your company solely, right? So you can also have only corporate repositories for this. So yeah. You can discover like some of the templates we already have. A lot of templates are being added from the open source community. So I will show you in a sec as well. You can also start your project straight from the bat with a template. So it basically sets up a scaffold, as we called it, like a base template for you to build upon. So for example, if you have an integration developed and you have this repo and it's not even connected to ACD in any way, but you want to make it available as a template for other users to use or other employees to use, you can just simply type in ACD in it, and it will already create some of the components that are needed to create the template. Then you need to, of course, make that specific to the project you are uploading. But that's really easy, and there's a good guidance and a good documentation on which information you need to add in the project, so you can easily create your own ACD templates. So that's one. So you can follow like a code first approach. And the discover one is more based on an existing template that you reuse, which you can adapt, of course. With the infrastructure phase, you basically deploy the whole part. So it's really easy then to, if you have initialized the ACD for your product, for your project, you can easily provision that and deploy that to Azure. And I think this is the most important part, that everything is already templated in a way that you use, for example, Bicep templates or Terraform. You can choose whatever you want, and you can then deploy that automatically to the cloud with one simple command, which is ACD up, and it will just deploy it to the cloud. And this is already a big winner for a lot of customers, because it's you don't get you don't need to do a lot of things to have that whole project deployed in Azure, and you can easily test it, of course, then in Azure as well. Next to that is that we also infuse a lot of the best practices we have in those templates. So, for example, we already embedded, for example, with monitoring, with use of key vault, so you don't leave any secrets in your code, right? That you put them into a key vault for better use of secrets, of course. So we already include a lot of the things we know from a Microsoft best practice already in those templates. So it's also a guidance on how you should set this up in a reliable, secure manner. It also sets up the CI/CD for you. So basically, when you create a project, you deploy it to Azure, then it can also automatically create a GitHub action or an Azure DevOps pipeline for you. So you can, after that, you can you can build on that template basically and build on the project to make it really production ready for production ready use. So it embeds all the things we basically need as a developer to build fast, add it with your current code you have, I would say less hassle from the infrastructure, because it's already embedded into the templates, and you can apply a CI/CD automatically based on the project you already designed. So I think it's a real time saver in this case.
Mm-hmm.
So let me just switch to the
Pascal, can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Is this replacing Bicep, or is Bicep still used within these developer CLI in the background in the process of creation?
You can choose. So you can choose Bicep, or you can use Terraform.
Right. Okay.
So basically, the two main ways of deploying Azure services are supported in ACD templates.
But what I understood, but maybe I understood it wrong, but that you have to create the Bicep yourself and then put it in a template, and then you can reuse that template for another project. Is that
You still need to create your bicep, of course, because the one that if it's your project, you need to know which components it takes and which components needs to be created, of course. But when you initialize it, the ACD on your project, it will already set up a sort of a structure for you that will help you create those biceps. So it will already create a folder structure, create a main bicep file, and you can then add the modules to that. So it already makes it a lot easier to do, and it already provides sort of a structure for it.
Yeah, and
so
the pipelines are generated. So if I understand it correctly,
correct.
So you don't have to create the pipelines yourself, but that's something that it does.
Yeah, so there is a standard CI/CD pipeline added to the project. There are mostly already in the actual projects, so you can just copy and paste one, and then you're ready to go. Basically, it leverages the ACD commands for your CI/CD deployment, and which basically then kicks off the bicep templates or the Terraform templates that you use for the deployment. So it's basically just leveraging the structure you already have in place.
Okay.
So here you have the website, which we call Awesome ACD, where a lot of the templates are already in place. So you can see here there are already like 56 sites of templates, and this grew over the year a lot, right? So there are a lot of people from the open source community just added a lot of new templates in here, and as you can see here, this is just like a few samples we have in here, but there are many, right? So let us just for now, just for the demo purposes, I will just focus on some specific ones. So for example, I'm more interested in the integration related services, so I will click API management, and I can see here that there are 3 sample templates available. Well, for example, if I'm interested in this one, I can just click it, right? And it will just redirect me to the actual GitHub repo of this person, the project in here. So it's basically explaining the project. But this one is set up in a, I would say, in an ACD compatible way. That's why it's also being exposed in here, right? You can also contribute to this yourself, so you can also add your own ACD repos to this one as well, so it will be available for others to use in this case as well. So for example, I'm pretty interested in this template because I have a similar project that pretty has this same structure in it, which I want to use, so I can reuse this basically as to use at my own. There are some links in here to the docs and to architectures where you can see that how you create this, right? So how do you use Developer CLI? How is it built up? What does it create for you? How do you create it for your own projects or your own source directories? So you can leverage the documentation to see how you can do that step by step. Well, let's dive into the actual code. So in this case, I already have ACD installed. It's just this one simple command. It's mentioned in the doc, so you can deploy it in it's cross-platform, so you can deploy it in any on any machine you would like. So for example, I will just use, for example, this now. I will call it MIUG ACD fast API or something. That's the project I want to create. Oh, here. API. So now I'm in this folder. There's nothing yet in this folder. I will open up it here. I can do that in different ways, but let me do it like this. So this is the folder. So I'm just opening up already the folder so I can see the actual context of the folder a little bit more easy. And in this case, I want to do the ACD init as a command to use, and because it's that easy. But let me first show you the templates if we already have. So if you do ACD template, you can already see some of the the standard templates you can use. So when I use ACD init as a command solely, then I can just pick one of the actual templates which are in here. Or if I have an existing project and I want to add, for example, Terraform or Bicep starter template, I can choose that one and it will just add the specific components to the project I already have. So I can build on that to create my ACD template. In this case, I want to leverage the GitHub repo that we saw here, right? So this one is the one I chose. So I want to deploy this one. So then I will do AC init, and I will, as you can see here, just paste in the actual repo URI, and now it will just basically do an import or a fork, just how you call it. It will just take the code from that repo and will copy it locally. It's not. I just have it locally, so it's not in relation to the actual repo project. So and here it will ask me first enter a new environment name which will be used for the deployment. So I will use MIUG ACD fast API. And my project is initialized. So it basically just took a copy of the whole project here because it's basically the same structure. And if I just want to deploy it, I can just do an ACD up, and it will deploy it to Azure. And it will ask me firstly, like, okay, to which environment do you want to deploy it? So in this case, I have multiple subscriptions. In this case, I want to put it in this subscription. It will retrieve the locations for my subscription. I will use the West Europe region, and it will start deploying. Well, this will run for a sec. So but you can see the progress in the portal. So if we're gonna go to the to this link, I can already see the project being created in my subscription. So you see here that the actual components are already being deployed. So we're gonna wait that out because there are a lot of things that's going to be created, like API management. There's a Azure function. So there are a couple of things in there. Just explain me a little. I will explain a little bit like how the structure is being set up. So an important part is the configuration. So basically, it just adds in an env file the things I've added for my environment with my subscription and my location. So you can create multiple environments where you're gonna deploy your services to. So you can use that, but it's in a separate folder. It has a dev container also added. So if you want to use code spaces or use the dev container to keep it separate, to the development separate from your own machine, then you can do that. You can just start the repo in a separate container, and it will just spin up a container basically fixed with all the components you need for this project, so you can develop faster, but also more, I would say, more focused on the project that you need to do, or more focused on the task you need to do. Then you have in GitHub repo, you have a couple of GitHub actions already available, and this one is one that is being created for the so the Azure Dev YAML is the one that's being created for the Azure pipeline. And this is just the basic setup of how you want to set it up. When we're going to initialize the pipeline, it will create and ask all these environment variables from us, so we can create that on the flow. It will upload it to GitHub, where the variables will be stored in the secrets, and you can then use it for your automated pipeline. So it's pretty cool. And it will just ask when I initialize this pipeline, it will just ask this information to me, and it will register it in GitHub. So that's pretty cool. So there are a lot of things already very nicely in place. An important part is the infra part. So this is where all the bicep templates are being stored. So basically, this is deploying the whole solution. Yeah, so for most of you who already know bicep, it works with the main template, but the structure of the folder is pretty fixed because this is where the ACD template looks for, that it will look for the main template in that infra folder. So that needs to be in place. But the most important part is the Azure YAML file. This is the basic, I would say, the entity of the ACD template. So this is where the project is being defined as a template for this project. And you can from here as well, just with right click, you can also run, if you have the Visual Studio extension running for ACD, you can do this from here as well, where you can also say, okay, I'm going to deploy to Azure, or I want to view the monitor from the ACD, which I will show you as well, but which is nice as well. So you can,
but Pascal,
I'm now using the terminal, but you can use the extension as well. Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, that was my question. So what you just show us, for example, the init, that's something that you can also do in the menu as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can also use the command line, right? So if you use here, as you can see here, the developer CLI, you can also use the commands from the command line in Visual Studio as well. But this is related to the extension, right? So you need to have the ACD extension running. So you need to install this.
Yeah. Great.
So yeah, so interesting. So it deployed everything. And it deployed this service API. So we're gonna look at this as well. But the nice thing, it also included, and this is some of the best practices we have within Microsoft, how we deploy our services, is that we add application insights, add monitoring, but also, for example, include a dashboard for your app insights. So you can also include the definition for your application insights dashboard in this project as well. So for example, if I want to look this up, so I can just do ACD monitor, and it will just open up the actual monitor in Azure, in the Azure portal, where I have my usage, my response, where my calls, my requests, everything I see coming in related to this project. So this is already linked also to the actual ACD project.
But is this something that specific user has created, that specific monitor, or is that something that you can include only by typing?
You need to include this. You need to include this. So for example, when you create your project and you have specified like a specialized dashboard for this integration or for this project. Then you can extract that and put that into a bicep template and add that to this project. But the nice thing is you can share this template with everyone, right? So everyone who does the ACD in it with your template name behind it will get this.
So that's a great advantage.
So in this case, this monitor was already within the source on GitHub.
Right? So exactly. So if you look at the bicep file, so there's just one mention for the dashboard, which creates the dashboard. So that's basically what it already includes that part. That part. So let us look at the actual output. So we have this. This is the URL that's being output, and this is the actual output of the project. So it basically exposes a fast API via API management, as you can see here in the setup. And the nice thing is from this template, because I looked at this template for a couple of hours, because I like the setup. It's that it uses a different setup, like a setup I've not seen before, but it's really useful. Is that you can, within your API, it defined like two two APIs. So one is the protected API call. So basically that's only referring to the Azure function, which is behind it, right? So that's the architecture that you see here. So there's an Azure function behind it, which is being exposed via API management. And there are protected calls which are secured by a subscription key, and you have public documentation also available within that function. So the nice thing is that this is the public part you see basically. So you see here the public doc part, and there is no subscription key needed on this API. So it's publicly available. Which is nice because you can show, or basically you can expose the APIs you have within your organization, and you can also say to customers that you want to use. Basically, it's another way of exposing the API if you don't have, for example, or don't use the dev portal, because we normally use a dev portal for this as well. You can use the developer portal and API management for this purpose. Well, if you now just look at this, how it's structured, then you can see it's an open API definition for fast API, and you can call it from here as well. So you can say try it out, execute, but then it will say you get a access denied because it requires a subscription key for the specific API, of course. So yeah, we need to get that first. So we go then to the subscription. There's going to add as for test, create the subscription. This one, just going to copy the key. That you can see that it actually works. So here you're going to execute it, and then you can see that it just gives a 200 response. So you can see that it works now because it gets past the actual validation, right? So that's why here that subscription key is placed, that you can only access those protected API calls by having a subscription key in place. But this one is public for everyone, so you can see the definitions. Everyone can see those definitions, right? So I think it's a nice way of splitting this up. Of course, when you look at the protected API calls within the settings, you have the subscription key required. So this is this is why we need in the public one, where you basically make a reroute to this address, that we need to have that subscription key in place. So yeah, so this is basically the setup of the project. The nice thing is that if you look at the resource group that it has created, so that's this one. So it created all those resources in a really nice manner. It also uses some of the naming conventions we have, and you have some I would say some control over that. So and let me see if I can have it here. Oh, it's not being used in this one, but I saw it in another project that they use the abbreviations for example, for I will just open up another one just to see if this one. So it uses an abbreviation.json, which you can reuse in the creation of your services, and I really like that. In this way, you standardize basically how all the services are being called, but you can do this organizational wide, right? So if you put this in a template, then everyone that uses the template or has a basic template that you use uses the same naming conventions for all the creation of all the services. So I must say that I like this approach as well. So this is being done in this specific sample.
But Pascal, if you want to, for example, you have a solution where you're going to do multiple things, so you want to use another template as well. Is that something? So how can you combine that in Visual Studio Code, or do you have to combine it, or how does it work?
What do you mean? I don't understand the question.
No, because so for example, so now we deployed the Fast API, but
Yeah.
let's for example, you have a customer that uses the Fast API with API management, but it also wants to do, for example, the other thing, let's say the enterprise grade reference architecture.
Yeah.
Is that something that you want to have a big solution? So normally when, let's say in Visual Studio, you have a big solution and you have multiple projects.
Yeah.
Is that something that you can also do with this as well, or?
Well, then you need to merge some of the information in one project, right? So you can extend this to the number of things you want to have included in this architecture. And the nice thing is that like, this one is like really, I would say, simple and a little bit minimized, right? So
Yes.
So when you look at this one, so the I think I clicked this one, right? Yeah, the real estate one. So as you can see here, if you look at the infra, you can see that there are a lot of components here. So you have the main bicep file, which kicks off basically all the modules that are in there. But as you can see here, it's being, well, split up in a lot of bicep files, which are used for deployment of this service. So you can make it as big or as small as you would like.
Okay.
And making the reference to integration, I think this is really interesting because from an integration perspective, you normally want to you want to template your integrations. I would say in a more neatly way, right? And
Your
I get a
patterns,
lot
you
of
mean,
questions
right?
from customers saying like, okay, I want to have a template for my async pattern, or I want to have a template for a pub sub pattern. And this is something you can already set up pretty easy with ACD in this case, because there's a good overview of all the services you are using in this scenario. So yeah, I would I see a lot of possibilities, because normally I would say that mostly developers, this is mainly focusing on developers, but application development is pretty similar to integration development, as I say to a lot of my customers. So I think we can benefit from this tool as well in this in these use
Very
cases.
nice. Pascal, someone told me a while back that there still was a problem with logic app deployment from within this CLI, Azure CLI. Is that known by you, and is it already fixed?
Oh, that's an interesting one, and I don't know. I see that, for example, Service Bus is added. There are some templates for Service Bus, Dapper. So I see a lot of the integration components already come back in these templates. But indeed, Logic Apps, there is not a template for Logic Apps.
Yeah,
but my guess is that.
I think it's already solved. That he said. So a colleague of us, he already was working with the developer CLI, and first he had a problem with logic apps, but then after some trying and retrying, maybe I can do this, or maybe and he solved it. So you can also now deploy logic apps as well.
I would think it would be it should be possible, because I think app service is already the app service, normal app service is already enabled as well. So but again, I think still, if you look at the tags, so there are no logic apps tags yet. So I would encourage everybody to create some ACD templates with with logic app in it.
He did it, but I think with a workaround, so that maybe it's not fully supported yet. That's my
maybe we can ask him.
So again, this is an open source community, so we have some standard templates that we provide ourselves, right, within the which you saw with the ACD template list, right? But we encourage everyone to add their own templates here, because if you look at the templates here, there are some really nice nice samples in there. For example, how to use the ChatGPT plugin using Python and Fast API. This is one that was being demoed on Build, where you can create your own plugin in ChatGPT. And basically, the whole project is already being prepared for you, so you can use it off the shelf. I think this is really cool. to reuse. And also, yeah, you could, like as I mentioned, like there are already a lot of things focused on the new development with ChatGPT. I like the Cato ones as well. So yeah, you
And,
can you can
And if
start
you want
pretty quickly.
to, if you want to contribute, is there something requirements or?
Yeah, you can just when you create your GitHub repo. So you have your GitHub repo, for example, where you have your project in, where you have your application or your integration in. You can just submit a PR for this with your template name, and it will probably be validated, and then it will be visual in the in the overview that you have.
Okay,
Oh, very nice.
That sounds really awesome. Yeah.
I find it really cool. This is a
Yeah.
really nice feature.
It would be nice to have these patterns, the most used patterns in templates available. That would be really nice.
Yeah. So, for example, in my own repo, I already have a lot of templates for Azure Integration Services, right? So, how to deploy, for example, logic apps in an isolated manner. I'm planning to convert this all to ACD, so you can pick this one off the shelf and deploy it. So yeah, but yeah, I need to do that still. So if I have the time, I will invest. My summer probably will be gone after this project. Yeah.
All right. Well, it was very nice.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think very informative and very nice features to use within Azure to make things
sounds really
easier
good.
for everyone. So thank you, Pascal, for
Yes.
sharing all this knowledge with us and the community, of course.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, I think we can conclude this session. So everyone, thank you for watching till the end of the video, and we'll hope to see you in the next video.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye
Bye-bye.
bye.
Okay. Bye.
And the recording.
Lex.
And the recording.